Welcome to the Smoking Word. Welcome to the Smoking Word.
What's up, everybody? Before we start the podcast, I want to announce some shows. If you haven't heard, Hardcore is fucking back. And we got some shows booked already. Friday, June 25th in Hamden, Connecticut. Saturday, June 26th, Hampton Beach, New Hampshire. Sunday, June 27th, Reading, Pennsylvania. Listen, tickets are on sale right now. Go get them and come out and party with us. You know what I mean? You wanted shows? You got some shows. So here we go. But yo, this podcast is brought to you and always will be brought to you by CasaDaRock.com. You know the deal. That's my merch store. We got a lot of merch for his and hers available. All t-shirts, $21 for the whole year. That's how we're doing 2021. And again, I want to shout out all my Patreons. My Patreon's the family's getting bigger, and I can't tell you how much love we got for you, because that's what's going to keep the show bumping. And we have a lot of shit in the works. So shout out to my Patreon family out there. And for everybody who wants to get down with the get down, patreon.com/the smoking word. Again, for you dinosaurs and you slow people out there, patreon.com/the smoking word. That's a way you can invest in the show. If you got a job, you got no excuse. And if you're listening to this shit, that means you got a phone or a computer, you got $2. The first tier is $2, $5, and so on. Exclusive video, behind the scenes shit, stuff that nobody else gets. That's how we're going to build this. But again, patreon.com/the smoking word. Get down with the get down. And everybody, follow me at Hoya Rock 357 on Instagram. You know the deal. It keeps you up to date with everything. And now make sure you add the Smoking Word podcast on Instagram. You understand? If you want to shout us out, if you want to curse us out, or if you want to get whatever you want to do, talk shit, any ideas, anything, any new music, you could hit us up on there. We're going to check it out. So make sure you add the Smoking Word podcast on Instagram. And you could follow me on all my other shit. Look out for that new Madball in 2021. We're not playing games, and we're working a lot on that new shit. So stay tuned. I have a lot of shit in the works. Right now, we've been editing like crazy. We threw out a teaser out there for everybody. Follow us on Apple Music. Follow us on Spotify and subscribe on YouTube. Listen, it's free. Number one is subscribe. And number two, not only is it free, but it goes a long way. It lets the people in our world know we're out here making noise. And, you know, we need some respect. So put some respect on it when you fucking say the smoking word. But listen, again, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And today, an old friend and a very, very talented musician and part of the New York hardcore bass army, and also that metal army. Satan's favorite and my favorite, my bro, Paul from Black Anvil. Let's set this shit off. What up,
made
Paul?
one. Good.
I just made it up right now. Well, you know, it kind of reminded me of a Madball song, but we'll talk about that at another time.
All right. Which one?
Tell me no. Look it. Smell the Bacon. Black number one. You're a bass player. Doom, 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 doom. They changed the last note. Just saying.
100%.
I'm just saying.
100%.
I got GED. What year did Smell the Bacon come out? 1988. What year did Black whatever come out?
93?
Just saying.
92,
saying.
93.
Nah,
Yeah. All right.
I very much doubt he was listening to the Madball 7-inch. But
well,
maybe.
You don't know. He's writing AF songs, right?
Listen, shout out to Pete Steele. Shout out to Typo Negative and everybody who loves Black. What's up? What's up, Pablo?
What's going on, man? Yo, I like that background. I like that background.
So listen, so what happens during the COVID, things started snowballing, Spotify picked up Rogan, Apple Music picked me up. They said, we're going to set you up in a big multi-billion-dollar studio.
We got to compete with this Joe Rogan guy.
Yeah, this fucking bald-headed muscle midget guy. And they put me this. No, yo, I love these fucking background shit. It kills me. But
I set up for you. I set up.
Hell yeah, I got the alt. I was expecting to see like chicken feathers,
Yo,
so,
I hate when you see videos like interviews like this and there's like a hamper and it's just whack in the background.
Listen,
like
if I didn't have this, you would see a hamper. My son's like
you
Iron
got
Man.
kids, though.
You see an Iron Man like blanket. Like, I can have all the hardcore shit I want. I got like an Iron Man blanket and some other Japanimation shit.
You get the pass though. There's few people that get the rite of passage.
But listen, what's up with you, man? When's the last time I seen you in human life?
At the park for like 30 seconds.
Okay, yeah, at the park, before the park.
Before the park was when you played Bizarre. Before the last record came out.
Wow. So yeah, it's been a minute. And that's what I'm saying. I see you always online and I saw you quick, so I forget. And we always bullshit quick. So it's kind of, we've been in touch, but what you been up to during this fucking whatever you want to call it or whatever's going on? I don't even want to get into, but what you been going, there's no music. So
I've been enjoying it in a way. In a way, I like solitude always. I like to lay low and just, I'm never bored. You know what I mean? So I like being alone. I like doing my thing, but I like doing that on my own accord. So this was a bit different because the beginning of this whole thing was pretty strange. I'm sure you have the same conversation with everybody, but once I hit like a stride, I don't know, I started writing. We had a record written and ready to record. Yeah, we were supposed to make a record spring 2020. We signed to a new label. We signed a Season of Mist in the beginning of the year, and it was all things were looking great. And then this shit happened, and it was like, all right, what do we do? Like, we can't record, There were some other friends' bands that were like not sneaking to record, but like, breaking the rules and doing what they had to do. And we just figured we got two guys on the West Coast, two guys on the East Coast. Like, what are we going to do? So let's just sit on it, So we sat on it for a year. Now we're going to record this record that's already been written in August. So, which I think was for the best. I've seen so many records come out that just sort of fell in the cracks.
Yeah, you would think some people thought, the remedy is, people are going to buy the record because everybody's home. But then there's also, in reality is the underground, no matter how supportive they are, you got to go live. You got to tour and you got to hit the towns for them to fucking say, let me go buy this record. Let me go download this. Like, you almost got to hit them over the head, with it.
Yeah, because the attention span, people's attention span nowadays is like blink of an eye. It's like you're watching Tiger King and then, and then you realize it's been a year and a half and you're like, wow.
I know. And what I was going to say, when you put out that record, that all this shit happened and all that and whatever, obviously you guys were burnt, like, I know you must have been a little pissed off, like, fuck, you put so much energy and work into something. And especially when you drop an album, people don't know that when you lay it out is almost as important as the music itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we could see.
So what happened with this one, it's, we were ready to do it. And we had like a loose, like, let's get into the studio spring and that, it was just starting to develop, but it was written. So the fact that we scrapped it a whole year gives us time to sit there. I know me personally, gives me time to sit there and be like, do I like this shit anymore?
Yeah.
Like I sit there, I overanalyze it, and
that's the worst.
It's like played out. I got demo-itis. I'm like really attached to the demos.
That's everything. The demo's always raw. They sound meaner. Well, the demo. And then you later on, you're like, what's that shitty recording with all the hard songs? You know what I mean? But I know what you mean. To this day, it's funny you say that. I just heard Maddie talking about the same thing about some songs we had written. He was like, I wish we had the demo version because it was raw. And it's like,
there's an edge to it,
Less tracks.
An edge.
Less tracks is the secret.
Yeah.
I'm serious.
The last one that we put out, I told the dude that mixed and mastered it, Swedish guy, And he's done some records that I really enjoy, you know, like super hi-fi, super lo-fi. Like he just knows how to get what a band needs to sound like. I sent him all the old demos, and I'm like, these are the old demos. These are what they became on the record.
Make it.
How do you make it big and still keep that demo vibe? And he completely understood what I meant. I think with the last one we captured that.
Yeah. No, I gotta check that out. I haven't heard none of that shit. The last things I heard, I don't know. It might even been songs that you got on that last record, because you had sent me pieces a while ago of stuff randomly. So I know that some stuff ended up because they were kind of far along, and then
that might even be more the recent shit too.
That's what I mean.
It's been like almost 2 years we spent writing a record, and
crazy.
You're
right. It might be that long. And what you call it? Where did you record it at? I think we talked about it, and I forgot.
We made the last record in Queens in Woodhaven, which is
the black metal capital of the world, right? Queens.
Woodhaven,
black
Queens, and
metal.
white trash and black metal capital of the world.
Just like Norway, kind of. It's almost Norway.
Just a little cleaner.
Middle village, like
so this guy that we know, who's one of the black metal kings of Queens,
the black metal king of Queens. That's that alone. We got to give this motherfucker a TV show. The black metal king of Queens. You heard it here first. Oh my God, that's amazing. But what's his name? He's
talk to Apple about that. Colin Marston.
All right, and engineer.
He's got this big studio. It's like a compound. He lives there. We get there. You're gonna love this part. I was just telling Isaac about this the other day, and he was bugging out and had like a counter story to it. We're sitting there, and it's just one of these moments where I'm looking at a bunch of CDs that are laying around, and I pick up Snow Informer, and I'm like, "Yo, why you got this?" And he's like, "That record was recorded here." The guy that owned the studio originally recorded a bunch of hip hop stuff, and if you want to call whatever you want to call Snow, but that record was written there.
That was
recorded there.
A huge record. And for everybody out there who don't know, Snow was this white boy who sang reggae, but he was dope. And on the side B, he had a hard track called "Lonely, Lonely Monday Mornings." Check that out, everybody. But you know why
it's dope? Check that out.
Yeah. It actually is it has kind of like it's a reggae, obviously like a hip hoppy trance style beat, but it's actually got that Bjork kind of dark feel. That track, pretty dope, and it was different.
I only really remember the single. I remember that video coming on the box all the time.
Like a billion times. But that's dope. So it's a cool studio. And what's up with that guy? So he's a Queens guy originally.
I don't actually know. I don't think he's from New York. Sorry to throw him under the bus and ruin the whole TV show idea. I don't think he's from New York because he doesn't sound like me. But I know he's been here for a while. He's in a bunch of bands, and he's just got a great studio. And we shipped it off. We were gonna have this guy from Sweden come over and work it out. He was on tour with Mayhem. He does sound for them in production, and we were gonna have him stay here after a festival and find a studio and track here with him. And that got thrown into chaos like always. Nothing's ever smooth. Yeah. So we figured second best we could track in Queens with this guy. He's got a great studio. He's done some great stuff, and then ship it off to Sweden to get mixed and mastered, which I was a little like, I like to be in the room and control that. Yeah. But he sent us a rough mix. I gave him crazy notes, and the only thing we had to do was raise the ride cymbal throughout the whole record. And I never had a situation like that where I wasn't a part of the whole thing. And we were that happy. So we're just going to go with the same two people again.
And we learned that also in the later years. Back in the day, it would be all of us. And they had no say. And that's the last thing you want. It was like 4 meatheads yelling shit at you while you're doing just getting
you
there.
Guys,
especially us
than us guys.
And then even more like
you guys then. And Matt Henderson, who's like
the only exactly
genius. It's like you have the meatheads, and then you have the guy that
you had one orangutan. If it was Planet of the Apes, you had the one orangutan, Maddie, and the rest were gorillas. And we were like, just didn't know. And the poor engineer was the human that we just abused and kept them naked and just like watered them down. But then I learned later on. I know what you mean. We were kind of always hands on. We were even there for mastering at one point. It got in the
I did
early
one
days.
mastering setting
Yeah.
with Alan Duchess, just because I
Yeah.
wanted to see, or Douches,
Yeah.
however it's
We
pronounced.
did with
I wanted to
Chris
see.
Geringer. And shout out to Chris. I'm glad I remembered his name because he did all the old Madball records, right? He was part of Roadrunner. Mad cool dude. And we would do it in the Hit Factory, which, if people don't know, the Hit Factory is Michael Jackson, Paul Simon, Meatloaf. So you got us walking in there, you know, mastering, Set It Off and shit. But Homeboy was a cool dude, and he actually had mastered Ice Ice Baby and Vanilla Ice and all those records. And he had done the Madball album called Small World, you know what I mean?
So that's how he brought Scarhead on tour.
And that's how Scarhead got onto. Thank you, Ezek. You're welcome. But all right, and this guy, so you got, and so you ended up doing that, sending it and having Homeboy and Swedish
Sweden,
guy, you said.
Sweden knock it out,
right?
yeah. And we're gonna do the same thing again.
Yeah, let me ask you this: what is it with that style of music and these fucking Swedes that they got the lock? Obviously, you know, all right, hip hop started in New York. All right, yeah, but there's people that kill it that are from everywhere else. These motherfuckers got a handle on it. On that
there's
style.
something out there. There's something with everything out there. You know, like the drummer for Entombed, Nikke Anderson. That guy.
Shout out to Entombed too, man.
Yeah, that guy could do anything almost. You know, it's like there's something in the water in Scandinavia. I don't quite get it.
You know what's something that just
when you go to Europe and you hear some hardcore bands, it's not the same as New York. So you know, I guess the territory just breeds it.
You know what's something that just popped in my head asking you the question? I kind of think it goes to it, especially being up there. That one, obviously, you know, where in such beautiful countries, you know, anger lives everywhere. So no matter where you live, so
it's true.
So one, they're gonna want the extreme, because to fight the extreme, you know, the inside anger, they got to paint the picture. So okay, musically, I think technically is because they, in general, those countries, as you know, just the kids in general are, I don't want to say smarter than everybody, because I'll be dissing myself, but they're very educated and have, you know, the musicians there are ridiculous in general. Like they all play guitar, they play bass, they all engineer, they do sound on the weekend. All those, a lot of the Viking people, although the Norway and Swedish, like the English too, very technical with the.
It's the same with that dude, that the Necromorbid Studio. He plays drums. He's bananas drummer. Plays guitar. He can do everything, and he can manage band. And he's a manager. Manages Mayhem. It's wild, man.
Yeah, and that's dope. And the guy who did it, so he's the manager for Mayhem. Does he record Mayhem or just sound and?
He recorded the newest Mayhem record. He
right.
got on board with them. He's been like Wataine's guy, tours with them, records their records, and their records are massive. Yeah. You know, so just because the band got bigger and they had to grow and make it huge. So he just developed himself into that guy, you know, and got down with the Mayhem camp. And I sort of give him the credit for rebranding and making that band come out with a punch again. Yeah. Which is pretty cool. Because I know you love that shit.
Yeah. No, I like some of it. You know what it is where I got, you know what it is? I almost like the earlier stages of it where it was still, I heard the metal where I could still touch, you know, like it wasn't as, now, you know, there's still that type of styles around, but the technical part, I was never into that. Now they started, you know, even black metal back in the day, that shit was you know, Venom. That shit wasn't technical. Yep. You know, it was the rawness of what Celtic Frost was bringing a little, but obviously they made it grittier and it was times 10 and just dirtier, but it was still open.
I was going to bring them up a second ago when you were talking about growing up in the woods and in these nice cities where you're like, why are they so angry? I remember it was one of Tom Warrior's books or interview or something. And I guess this is pre-Hellhammer, but he said he used to listen to his Venom 45s on 33 because they weren't heavy enough. And I can relate to that. You know, like I remember sitting and listening to like my mom's Van Halen records and just putting them on slow because it was fucked up and heavy. Yeah. You know? And I could understand, you know, spending time in Europe, and you have more than almost anyone I know probably, you know, you see how people are fucked up, and I would love to, coming from here, I would love to just have it nice or have had it nice my whole life. And I have had it nice, but have it nicer, or wear one of those sweaters with the collar with like deer. But you know, it's the same shit everywhere. You know, you have, especially in Europe and in Scandinavia, there's times where it's like daylight for 4 hours. That's depressing, man. It's gonna make you angry.
It's fucking insane. And people forget that. It's like, you know, sometimes you need to see something to you know how you feel to get it out. If it meant a movie, if it meant loud music, you know, that's why, you know, sunny, beautiful, or nice mountains and people, hello. Maybe it's one of those days you're on a fuck you day. You know,
and
it's just because we're human.
Cut from a different cloth. And you get into this other music, and of course music is always the gateway to like, well, let me read this book or go beyond. And you realize you're different, you know, and those dudes, the early days of that whole scene, which is another thing. Like, I acknowledge that we're from here. Our sound is different. Our look is different. I realize I'm not trying to replicate what I hear. Like when it comes to black metal, I realize we're from here. We do it our way. The message is there. You know, the music is going to be our way. But like this movie, Lords of Chaos, got a lot of criticism because, you know, the internet loves to just criticize. But I actually thought it was made really well because it captured just young kids being angry. And I can relate, you know, being 13, 14 and listening to like a tape deck in Forest Park and just cranking tunes and not feeling connected to the Guidos in Howard Beach or something like this, you know?
Now, let me ask you this, because you said something right before, which I was going to touch on anyway, because to me, it's interesting and pretty crazy. And just, again, how amazing and crazy our world is. Like, I was going to ask you, how now you've been in the band, now you had the band for a while, so you guys are known now. But I know for a fact when you guys first came out, being a black metal band or whatever out of New York, you know, people were like, you know, what was the shit that you had to deal with that was talked about? Like, what was the water cooler shit talk about you guys? Because
it was always
what was what was the you know, how would they come at you guys? Because as a band, you were dope. You guys repped it the right way. You weren't like over the top with anything.
Thank you.
That, you know, what I always saw like, you would think you would want another, like when I see a hardcore band in fucking, you know, and fucking in Malaysia somewhere or some country I'm like, I get so, I'm getting goose pimples right now. Just, I would be psyched for anybody repping the movement, you know, in a spot that's not typically known for it. To me, I almost feel like we're penetrating.
See, you know, it's most the most of the hate that I notice is from here. You know, it's American kids that cling on to this European scene and have this elitist mentality. And it's funny because these are the people that don't do anything other than it's just the mouth on this forum or here or there. So I learned to ignore that pretty quickly because nobody says anything to you. A few instances it shows there's some heckling and, you know, we figured that out on the spot. But it's been one of the early things that got out. I remember discussing this with a friend before we signed a Relapse. They reissued the first record. A friend of ours in Holland put the record out. It's Reflections Records, and he did it on this offshoot called Monumentum that he was doing. And you may know the guy, Johan Prenger. He used to book shows, put records out.
Yeah, I think so.
He put out a press release that said featuring members of and listed every band that I filled in for and Gary and bands that rate for like the three of us, because it was started as the three of us. So featuring members of, it said Madball, Cro-Mags, H2O, and like Kill Your Idols last.
Yeah, bang.
And I'm like, people are gonna read this and imagine Rusty and Corpse Paint or something.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to just not put out there who we were. You know, I wanted to keep it mysterious and start fresh, because one thing doesn't have to do with the other. When it comes around, it'll come around and it's like, oh, those guys or something. Yeah. Oh shit, losing my headphones here. So that happened, and that became just people not even understanding what our old band was, what Kill Your Idol sounded like. Everyone just assumed, oh, a macho hardcore, tough guy hardcore band. Like, comparing us to Hatebreed. It's like,
Yeah.
well, and there's nothing wrong with Hatebreed, but that wasn't what the band was about. That was never what.
Sound like it.
Yeah, Kill Your Idols was a very honest band, you know, in what we did, and I don't know. I think seeing the connection of us as musicians and what we did, and if you knew us as people, the main thing there, jumping to this was very natural because this is where we all come from musically. You know, like heavy metal opened the door for hardcore, and we're older. I'm the young one, and I'm 43. Rafe is like
86.
He's 86. He looks
him and
90,
Satan were in junior high school together.
Yep, 202.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's 52 or 53, you know? So, and that dude's seen Merciful Fate before people were born.
Yeah.
And that are talking shit. So it's, and again, I'm the young one, but I came up with these older guys. So I don't know. I was just around this mentality. So yeah, it's pretty strange to see how people just want to hear one little thing, jump and run with it, which you see happen all the time online, everywhere.
Yeah.
And run with it without even researching or checking anything out. Or, you know, a lot, we would get a lot of slack for having clean vocals in some parts on some later records.
God forbid. Oh shit, no, God anything. I'm sorry, wrong.
Yeah, don't.
Devil, Satan forbid.
So yeah, but these same people will listen to other genres of ambient music or whatever's cool in the moment.
Yeah, whatever for them. Yeah, they learn how to bob and weave to what they like, and then till it's convenient for them. Yeah,
or other bands that are cooler. You know, in their eyes, if there is some clean singing, it's like that's the thing is we never gave a fuck to make anyone happy. So if we hear something, we're gonna do it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, you know, and we do whatever the fuck we want. I thought that's what being liberated was.
Yeah.
Was doing what you want.
You're right. And that's the hardcore kid in you, though. You know what I mean? That's the thing that us hardcore kids have, no matter where we go.
And that's where I do see the connection.
Yeah.
That's where I see the connection, where a lot of people don't because they have like this misconstrued view of hardcore. That's where I see the connection is this attitude of I didn't get into this because I cared about people and because I loved, because I was Mr. Unity. Like I got into hardcore because I wasn't a happy kid.
Yeah.
And I associated with something that was rough around the edges, you know?
Yeah.
And it didn't mean I was out there mugging people and being, you know, but there was something.
That was Ezek and all those guys, not me. That was all them.
That might have been him and some other people. He knew.
Some chubby Spanish guy. No, for sure. And like, you know, it sucks that it comes from the people at home, right? Like, you know, from the people at home base that are going to give you the most hate when you're like, you know, you should be rallying for us, you know, like for me, I want New York to have the metal band, the hardcore band, the hip hop band, the folk band. I want, you know, you root for everything. Let's get everything under the umbrella on our team. Yeah.
And there's right now, there's nothing in New York, you know, I don't want to say New York is dead, but there's not much powerful music coming out of New York. Not to the point of like Kiss, the Ramones, Twisted Sister, Voice, you call it like, you know, what was the last big thing to come out of New York? The Strokes.
Yeah, something special.
You know, like
I know you mean. Now let me ask you this.
And the Strokes.
Yeah, and let me ask you this. So you know, so you went back to getting into what you got to now, obviously. So I know a little bit of the story already. You know, you got into heavy music because of your moms.
Yep.
That's what people don't go. You know, I want people to also know that, you know, I'm like the unwritten. I'm not just for girl power, but I'm a big mom power. Not just because my mom, Peppa. I'm a mama's boy, like I know you are, and Ezek is, and a bunch of us are. And I just want I remind the world that don't get it twisted, because we are those motherfuckers that don't give a fuck and would do whatever we want. But we were raised by mothers, and we love our mothers, and we know how high of, you know, where they belong, you know, and this whole thing of ours in general.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that, because I give my mom props to the point where sometimes I feel like I'm saying the same thing in every interview. Like I'm always giving her credit for having an insane amount of records and taking me to 8th Street to It's Only Rock and Roll and all these
Crazy.
record stores and St. Mark's. Like I knew all this because of her, because she was
Yeah.
into like, you know, she grew up on David Bowie, yes, King Crimson, but then she got into like some punk stuff, you know, like I heard Black Flag, Dead Kennedys because of her.
Yeah.
The Pretenders, X-Ray Specs. She liked all this stuff. Elvis Costello. She was just always into music. And we would sit and like listen to music together. Even when she was buying me records, like Metallica records, we'd sit there and like put a vinyl on and read the lyrics together, read the lyric sheet.
And that's fucking dope. That's why you cool with your moms and your mom's cool because your mom, people don't know we share the same mother because, you know, people don't know everybody out there.
You remember that story, right?
Of course, but let everybody know also. But Paul filled in for me, you know, while my wife was real sick, you know, the one thing we always want with the band is, you know, no matter what the band, you know, to keep going and keep going, you know, it's what we do. And it was, if I had to get anybody to replace me, there was a handful of guys, and I'm glad you were one of them. But Paul was one of the guys that filled in for me. So, you know, so Paul was the face of Madball for a little bit there, here and there. And then, but yeah, that story with your mom.
And I got some good stories.
Yeah, let us know.
There's some good stories in that whole thing, you know. And again, I'd rather you have been there, you know, because I wasn't there under the best conditions, you know. So, and that always meant something to me. Like as much as I enjoyed and appreciated that whole experience, like it shouldn't have happened because, you know, I shouldn't have been there to fill in.
Yeah, but I'm glad it was you.
I never lose sight of that because. Yeah, and I'm glad and I'm honored, you know, because I have immense respect for you guys as individuals. And so to be asked, especially back then, you know, I don't think anyone had ever filled in for you.
Yeah,
maybe
nobody had.
So that's like a big fucking shoe to fill. Like I've seen. I remember the tour I did filling in for H2O with you guys. Mitz wanted me to film something from front of house at Hellfest or Fury Fest, whatever it was called back then. And I was like, I want to hang out over here and watch front of house. And I watched from front of house and I was like, holy shit, you guys, it sounded like it was Slayer level punishing. I remember at one point filming and I realized the camera was over there. And I've to see you guys, who I know has always been one of the like incredibly tight hardcore bands, to just mangle a festival like that and sound that crushing. I even have goosebumps, not even kidding, thinking about that. It was crushing. And Danny was doing sound. It was that was one of those moments where I was like, this is the most professional shit ever. And then fast forward, throw me into that most professional shit ever with no notice.
Yeah.
It's like 18 songs.
No problem.
And I don't ever want to get that. The first thing I thought of was like that. I don't want to get that look from Freddie, that with the eye, you know,
the murder. Oh yeah. The Charles Manson. I'm going to cut your head off and feed it to the.
Where his eye gets twisted. I don't want that look, man. I thought of that. And I'm like, fuck, I don't want to fuck up at all. This has to be perfect. So at one point, Rig was telling me in the beginning that when he joined the band, and this was great, when he joined the band, there'd be times where you'd look at him and you'd be like, or Freddie would look at him and be like, yo, speed up, pick it up. And he'd start playing faster. And then you'd turn around and look at him, not knowing, and be like, why are you playing fast? You slow down. And he'd slow down. Freddie hears him slowing down and is like, I just told you to speed up. And he's like, it was a lose-lose, man.
Oh yeah.
And I'm luckily I'm just there to help. So hopefully this isn't gonna hopefully you're gonna realize that
I'm here to help you guys. I'm not a target.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna make eye contact, just peripheral. So but it was so I learned all the stuff immediately and did some stuff in the States. It wasn't until I got to Europe that I want to say the second or third sound check, Danny was doing sound. And Jordana, I believe is his last name.
Danny Jordana, that's my brother, the greatest sound man ever, everybody. He does sound with Hatebreed, and that's my brother, and he was a Madball guy before Hatebreed. Thank you, Hatebreed. Shout out to Hatebreed.
So he came up to me very soft-spoken, like day two. Your strap was one of the most horrendous guitar straps.
No, that was the essence of hardcore. The essence of hardcore lived in that strap. But anyway,
fast forward, our stage clothes are covered in blood and rancid. So I'm talking shit about you. He came up to me after the first or second sound check, and gear and backline and everything was still getting settled, sorted. And he very mild mannered. He was like, maybe you should raise your bass a little higher. And I was just like, okay, you're telling me how to play bass now?
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, before I even had the time to really process like why. And he's like, when you play with the pick, he's like, the angle, he's like, your pick is scratching on the strings and it's very noticeable. And I think for Madball, it'd be better if you pick a little more solid. And I was like, okay. And then I went back to, I'd rather have him tell me than Freddie.
Yeah. Better.
I'd rather hear that from him.
Than
Freddie.
Oh, that's amazing.
Or Mitz or anyone at that point. So I was just taking tips from Danny. And it changed my style of playing an instrument. Yeah. It made me way more focused because I'm a wild bass player. Yeah. Mitz would send me screenshots of photos of like live sets where I'm playing, and the strings, we tune lower, C sharp, but the string is like, looks like this.
I love when that lows. It's like pounding.
And he'd bug out. He's like, it's not going to sound in tune. How do you do this? And I'm like, you play.
Yeah, exactly.
I would get mad and defensive.
Yeah, I know you. I know him too. I know him.
But it hurt.
Yeah,
it's painful for him to see it.
I know. That's
painful.
Again, I'm glad it was you. Not only because we love you and all that. We knew you could handle the job because, in the band, I'm the weakest link in my band, and I'm a killer. So anybody who even fills in my spot got to be better than me. You know what I mean? That's how that's my layout of the band. Same thing. There'll never be I'm the weakest link, and I know I carry my weight. So meaning is anybody who fills in on guitar, sings, drums, got to be better than me. And that's what my band is. I even tell them that's why I flip on my band. If when I do flip on them, it's not because I'm better than you. It's because you're better than me, and you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And I know it, and they know it. That's the difference with the mentality,
It's so funny you say that, man, because I try not to flip on people. I don't think they're gonna watch this. I flip sometimes. I flip sometimes, but I realize that I'm the weakest link in the band too. I'm the least technically talented. Talent is whatever, but I can't do what those guys do on guitars. Yeah. So I got this little box that I play in, and I just always make sure that I know my limitations. How do I, inside this box, how do I hit every corner and leave like 0 square footage unturned? Like if I know I could only go here, and here, how do I not get played out? Okay, I have to go above and beyond and think how to do it different and navigate within the box.
Yeah. You know what it is? That's because we know we're not trying to be something we're not. We're working with what we got. That's the difference. There's people out there that they think they could do it all, and they want the world to see us do it all. Not us. We want to see the unit do good. That's the difference. When I flip on my band, it will never, ever, ever be because I'm having a bad show. Of course, I have a bad day, but it's because when they fuck up, it's because I'm the fuck up in the band. And if I ain't fucking up, you better not be fucking up. And that's always that. And I know how much, the band is like one of my arms. So I know I'm never going to, half step it. That's why, we're blessed to have always, a solid lineup, and the people in the band, they respect it. It's more than a band. This is, that's literally, it's one of our organs. We live on this shit. Like
the band is bigger than the fact that I could fill in for you proves that this band is such a machine. The first show we had one of the first shows on one of the European runs, because I did a couple for you. Flights were canceled. Air France was on strike. There's this whole big menagerie, and that's another word I got from you, menagerie.
Menagerie, yeah.
It's like in my head. Yeah. It was a whole thing. We got there, last band played, and it had been like 45 minutes, and we just rolled in from the airport in Poland somewhere. Like just got out, threw clothes on, and boom, played. I don't know if it was just coincidental, but I would almost always be the one that walked out first when the intro was playing. And Mitz would give me the cue, like when the big bong, the Terminator thing hits or whatever. He'd give me the cue to walk out, and I walk out with the bass, and man, people's faces, were just it was very weird to see like people chanting like Madball, and then see that hesitation on their face, and they're looking like, what is going on here? And I walk out.
You're like,
with,
yeah,
long hair,
spit on them,
and a bass down to my knees.
Yeah,
you know,
spit on that.
It was. There were a couple of Freddie smashed someone out for some heckling at one show.
No,
I'll tell you about that.
True. That's fake news. My
I'll tell you
Freddie
about that
doesn't
off the
do
record
those
if you
things.
want.
Yeah. What I wanted to ask you is this, which is something that I'm glad you got to experience, and I bet a lot of people wish they could. Was you got to play with Mackie.
I did.
And that's something that, you know, I don't care who you are. If you're part of this music, to just be on a stage with him, to watch him play is a gift, and to be able to jam with him and say, yo, I fucking played on one stage with him, let alone fucking how many stages. You know, how was that? Pretty bugged out, right?
I got to fill in for him and John too.
Yeah, and you did
whenever Craig couldn't do it.
Yep.
And playing with him with Madball was more controlled. With Cro-Mag songs, you really got to keep him in the rear view, because it's like he intentionally tries to throw you off.
Oh,
he does shit, and I'm like, you're not gonna get me, man. You're not gonna shake me.
Yeah.
And he of course he does. But
yeah,
playing with him and Madball was you know, I played with him and with Rig. It was both great, both really different.
Definitely.
And yeah, it's pretty surreal, because there's times like, you know, in a moment of a show, you realize, you know, you're in a zone, but there were times where I'd like just catch my breath drinking water, and I'm like looking around, I'm like, I'm playing with these guys.
I know.
You know, it's pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And playing with him, of course, you know, I played with him doing that before I even did the Cro-Mag song.
Yeah, and then you got to do the Cro-Mag shit later, and that was dope too. You know what I mean? Again, you know, that's what I tell people. You know, a lot of people, I say it, a lot of people, and anybody listening, all you cats that play, learn those songs, because you never know.
You never know.
You know, you become that guy. Like even Mike, who plays guitar for us now. Mike was filling in for Wisdom in Chains. We happened to play a show with him. We got along with him. We saw he was a killer guitarist. We kept tabs on him. And boom. You know, he ended up being the right guy. You know, we went through time. He got tested through a lot of, phases. And look at, but again, knowing these songs, you get opportunities like you know, you got, to put the.
I remember, Royce called me up and was like whispering on the phone. He was just like, hey, he was like, can you fill it? Like, just gave me the info and then gave me like 18 songs. And I'm like, this is tomorrow.
Yeah.
this is tomorrow. You don't want to like maybe play less so it sounds tighter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like a lot less.
Yeah, like 6 songs, wrap it up and just like ring out a lot.
Right.
I filled in for Rise Against. You know those guys, right?
Wow, of course. Yeah, like Mitz is good personally with them. I know of them, but that's crazy. I didn't know you filled in for them. That's dope.
Yeah, they called me up. They were doing Big Day Out. And it was Martin Luther King Day, whatever year it was, 07, 08, I don't know. I get a call from them. It was a national holiday. And prior to this, my car got broken into, and the only thing that got stolen was a bag that had nothing in it but my passport. Why I have my passport, I have no idea. So I'm like, I got no tours coming up. I slacked on it. They called me up and like, can you come to Australia tomorrow? Joe had some like medical issue that he had to tend to really quick. And I was like, yeah. It's like, I don't have a passport. It got stolen, like, so now I'm that guy that's like, yeah, but my passport got stolen, like a crackhead, I winged it. I managed it. Their management helped me figure out getting a passport in under 24 hours, get on a plane, meet them in New Zealand. And the whole time while I'm scrambling to do all this stuff, it's like, I got to figure out these songs. And that dude's a mean bass player. Like he uses all 4 strings. I don't use all 4 strings.
Yeah.
I know you don't use all 4 that much. So yes. I slide into the 3rd, whatever. The 4th one maybe makes some noise. It looks like I'm playing it. But that dude is technical. And I'm like, look, I'll learn all the root stuff. I'll do the best I can.
Yeah.
And when I got to New Zealand, it was like 7 a.m. and we went over 6 songs. And I'm like, how are you guys with that? I'd rather successfully play 6 songs than like train wreck and do 9. Yeah. And it was festival, so it was like 30-minute set. So we made it work, but I had no time. They called me like 2 p.m, and I had to figure out how to go home, get ducks in a row, get a passport, figure out these songs, get on a plane, like dig out my CD Walkman because the iPod's gonna die on a plane. I gotta keep listening to this stuff. And I got there and I did it, and we did like 10 shows or something like that, or off day shows, the festival shows, and figured it out. So it's a good thing is that a great thing about learning the Madball set too. So again, I have under 24 hours, right? I get the set list. Every record is tuned differently.
Oh yeah, that's a little note, a little tidbit that some people might.
Every record is tuned, so I can't just run it in set list order. I got to go in record order, or I got to keep tuning. So, oh my God, that was another like one of these. Man, this is how am I gonna do this?
I still don't know what we tune to. I'm always like double checking. You know,
it's
because we went from an E to half a step and then a half. Because again, you know, we wanted to down tune a little bit, but without trying to sound like a metal band, like too metallic metal. You know, so obviously we love the metallic sound, but we didn't want to just down tune straight.
You don't want to be muddy.
Yeah, so we were baby stepping, you know, and then it ends up being that when we teach people records, they're like, yo, it sounds different. Oh, it's a half step down or whatever. You forget and shit.
And it's like, and bouncing back and forth between tuning. It's like, how am I going to do this, man?
Yeah. Don't worry.
Yeah,
you just fake it. That's what I do.
Yeah, but then you get the look. Then you get the Freddie look. and then your life is over. Yeah.
And then he's now. Let me ask you this: and why bass? Well, how did the bass come into your world in general from jump?
It was my dad, who I have like zero connection with at all, played bass, and I knew that much. I knew that he played bass. He dipped and just dipped and did one of those moves. So I wrote the guy off. I even recently changed my last name because I don't want his last name.
There you go.
Just to get a little personal.
So
I changed it to my mom's last name.
Lucifer's official? Oh, I thought it was Lucifer. You changed it.
It's
Lucifer.
It's just one word, like Cher.
Lucifer.
Or like Rafe.
Yeah, right. Rafe. Rafe is Prince, Rafe, Madonna.
Yeah. So I changed it to Carlucci, which is my family name. But I'm you know, for music, I'm known already as what I am. So I don't feel like I'm this musician that's worthy of notifying the world that I changed my last name. I'm down here, you know, so whatever. But he played bass, and I always knew that. And my godfather in Woodhaven, funny enough, my mom's best friend's boyfriend at the time, who I picked to be my godfather when I had to go through that rigmarole, was this biker guy that hung out on Hillside Avenue. He was cool. He worked at this mechanic shop right across from Isaac's mom's house at Woodhaven Boulevard too.
Oh shit, I remember. Shout out to Ruthie.
And he remembered the whole, like, our Woodhaven connection is weird, but so he played bass coincidentally, and I always thought he was cool, and I just wanted to play bass. It was this cool looking instrument, you know. Everyone I liked played guitar, you know, like, but like music wise, I loved Eddie Van Halen, Paul Stanley, all these musicians I thought were cool played guitar, but bass just looked cooler, and it was accessible, and it looked maybe a little easier.
Yep.
And I just stuck with it because of him. You know, we went to get bass lessons in Long Island. He would take me, and I learned like 3 songs, and I went home. I was just like, I think I could figure out a Misfits record, or you know, something easy. And that was it. You know, I took like 3 or 4 lessons, figured out what I was doing.
What was the first bass you owned?
A Gibson EBO. It was actually my father's. I'm in like 3rd or 4th grade at this point. My mom, for whatever reason, was like, you should contact your dad and see what kind of bass you should play. I was like, all right. I remember the phone call. I remember being in my grandparents' apartment and talking to him on the phone. It was weird. It's the only time I ever had contact with him that I recall. So he said he'll give me his first bass, whatever. He even said, like, if you ever want to get rid of it, just give it back to me. It's important. And I'm like, yeah. Now, like, thinking back at that, I'm like, really? Like, this is a creep move.
Yeah, right? That's a creep. I'm just saying, in case you don't want it, give it back to me.
Yeah, I mean, I only left you with nothing. So if you don't want, if the one thing I give you, you don't want, give it back to me. I'll smash it before I give it back to him.
Yeah.
Which is currently broken like 4 feet away from me. So he'll never see this, but if he does, your bass is broken and it's over there. And I'm going to take the badass bridge off it and put it on another bass. So I guess my grandparents orchestrated a meetup with his mother, my grandmother on that side of the family to meet and get this bass. I remember getting there, the bass was there. He dropped it off and left or whatever. And I remember the door opening, seeing the guitar case. He wasn't there, but I was a kid, so I was just psyched to open it up and put it on, you know. And in doing that, the strap wasn't on and it fell, and I broke the neck.
Oh,
so I wound up getting it re-glued. I got it fixed. It's a small scale bass. It looks like a SG, you know. And I never really used it. I maybe recorded something with it or brought it to a studio, but I still have it. And
so that was your first.
Yeah.
And
so I'll give the credit to my godfather.
He's the one that got you. And then what was the first one that you got after that you maybe saved up for, whatever your next one, or that you wanted, that you got on your own? Now you're playing, you know, what was the next bass that came into your life that you had to have? You're
going to like the transition of basses, because, and I know you know why. So I ended up getting a 1970 EBO bass, Gibson one, from my godfather, Gene. It was like an actual big bass, and I used that for years. For years with Kill Your Idols, I'd bring that thing on tours. A 1970, big. It's like playing with an oak chair. It's not even like a bassman. It's awkward to hold. And then at one point, I got a BC. I got a Warlock. You know, I needed one of those when I was a kid, right? So I had this white BC Rich Warlock with like stickers all over it, and it looked cool, but it didn't sound great. I was playing through like a Harkey head back then, which was cool, I guess. You know, like it wasn't until the Galleon Kruger came around that I like officially stepped everything up. So I was playing that Gibson for a really long time, and I did most of my touring with that. Then I got the ESP deal and was getting those Vipers, which was essentially the same bass, but just a little more modern, same shape. And at some point when I'm doing the band No More Black, I acquired a GNL. It looked like a Telecaster, this GNL bass, the ASAT. And it was real cool. Again, it sat really awkward. You let go of it and the headstock goes down. But I was using it because I really liked the sound. You know, it was more aggressive than the Gibson. And fast forward, I fill in for Madball, and they're like, don't bring anything. You're using all Hoyer's gear. I got home from the first leg of that, and I was like, I need a Fender. I need a Fender. It was perfect. And I don't know why I was anti-Fender. I think it was just because Gibson wasn't known for bass, and I was just like, Gene Simmons played a Gibson, you know? Like, it was just, people would always be like, that's a Gibson bass. You know, I have a Marshall bass cabinet, an 8x10. People always freak out. Like, never saw a Marshall 8x10, and I'm like, So I was just stuck to the bass because I didn't know anything. You know, I didn't know any better. It was the one I had. I liked it. But playing a Fender, there's just no denying. It's perfect. It's perfect bass.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's like this. I played a trillion other amazing basses, you know, and they're great, you know, whatever. You grab a Fender, that's what it's like. A bicycle. It's what a bicycle should feel. Forget what you have, BMX, 10-speed, whatever. Just a bike, how it works. That's what a Fender is for bass. That's the starting point, you know.
And I also had an Ibanez sound gear, which I know you're familiar with the sound gear.
And let me just say this: the sound gear in that whole era of the cheap basses, those 90s. Were some of the best sounding cheap shit you would ever get, because I had these basses that sounded amazing, but they weren't a road
it's like a paperweight.
Like I would literally play it and I would bend it while I was playing it.
Out.
Yeah, I would go you know, playing Set It Off, because I would bend the neck, but they sounded amazing. And that's when I learned. I was like, okay, I'll pick up this. But then when I would, you know, I learned that. But at the end of the day, for, you know, back in the day, like you use a dirtier sound now. And then I started getting away from I went from a dirty sound early on, and then because I couldn't play guitar. And then I went back to a natural sound. And then when I go, oh, this bass is the best for the natural sound, the Fender. And then when I started, sometimes I would, you know, dirty it up. And then I go, wow, this bass is even good for a modern sound. This is what I thought. But then you listen to old bass tracks and they had old dirty sounds already, you know, where it was a little overdriven. And I was like, it was already meant to do both. Now other basses sound maybe, you know, because the pickups a little bit more control over overdriven sound or distortion. You know what I mean? Now your pickups could kind of keep shit organized. But at the end of the day, the bass, you know, a Fender could play, you know, dirty rock, blues, jazz. You know, you plug in, you could rock with a, you know, Fender P bass is ready to go. You know, jazz,
that
whatever.
And the Sans amp changed my life.
Yeah.
The first person I ever saw using one of those was Todd. That was in Warzone.
Yep.
I think it was playing with Vision. He was in Vision for a minute, and we played somewhere. It was like 15 people in Pennsylvania, you know. And I saw him setting this thing up, and I was like, "What is that?" And he's like, "It's a Sans amp." And he like played it open E, and then turned it on and played it E, and I was like,
"Yeah,
I need one of these. I need one of these." That and then spying on Craig's gear, you know, like looking at the settings on his, because he had a GK, or I think it was him.
Or he had a GK earlier too. We all had, you know, that was a New York standard, and to me, still one of my favorite heads ever.
Yeah,
is the GK.
I just stole his settings, you know, the Sans amp and that, because that was like scratch the surface era or whatever, and that bass sound was, you know, how do you get that gritty sound, but it also still sounds like low endy, because I'm big on low endy bass sounding like hip hop in a car. You know, I think no matter what, it should always sound like a bass. You know, it should.
That's what I agree. Bass got away from that, but that's what I always said. It should be that. Now, your top layer, you know, it's I tell you, it's your character. Like Craig uses a very, you know, hot, very sizzly sound, but that's his attitude. That's his style coming out. But you need the bottom end. You know, your style, you have a grit, but it's low endy grit. It's opposite from him. Yours is closer to mine, but yours is more overdriven than what I use. But it's more in my boat.
I realized filling in for you that I need more mid range in my sound.
Yeah,
because I guess it was out of what's the word? Whatever the word is, being anyway, I just insecure.
Yeah,
I was insecure with my playing, so I would code it and just make it sound massive. And Gary's guitar tone was always so cutting through everything that as long as I filled up the bottom, I don't even have to be playing the right song. It just sounds like the floor is gonna fall out.
Yeah.
So I mastered like coming back on the mid-range and just punishing and having that crisp bright, but also more low end. And I realized like playing the beginning of Hold It Down, you know, it's just the bass. If you don't have any mid-range in there, it just sounds like garbage.
Yeah.
And that's when Danny was like,
exactly. Now it's funny because I was the same thing with you. I would always go towards the low end, and I was like, no, I don't want it to be hot and sizzly because I want it to feel like that. I said I'd rather be felt than heard. But then I learned in those parts in my bass breaks, yo, it's sounding muddy, and I'm like, yeah, like, look, you're too scooped out, too V'd out, you know, on my EQ, and give it a little bit more mids. And then I learned to I learned to love mids for the overall mix, maybe not for my own self, but for the track. Then I'm like, I get it now. The track needs it, you know?
And that makes you have to focus on your playing live. You know, I can't just be wilding out like a maniac.
Yeah,
you know,
low end buys us sustain, buys us time. You know, boo, and then we could be a little off while everybody's tight. That's like, you know, who's a guitar guy, Keith Richards, who spins his hands around. That fucking dude, one of those dudes. That's like him. It's like
Pete Townsend.
Yeah, that motherfucker. You know what I mean? The other guys are jamming and he's fucking around doing that shit, but the band is holding it down, you know. But no, but you're right. You're 1,000% right. It's the like you got to learn to manipulate the low end that we love, but you need the high end, and that's what keeps the player on point. Because the high end, we could hear our mistakes and where we're at in the mix. Now we can't hide in the mix,
and that brings out that insecure. Like I can't hide. I hide in the low end. I just got this new Sans amp. It's a Geddy Lee one. It's the second edition. At first, I emailed the company. I'm like, this is too weird, man. It sounds like shit. I hit them up and I'm like, how do I, it's got like 2 channels. I know there's a manual, but I'm not going to process the manual. So I emailed him. I'm like, I'm a real big fan of the SansAmp, and I sent them my settings, and the dude wrote me back and explained everything. He's like, so it's going to be different for you. He's like, you're not going to get that mid-range scoop that you like according to your sound. He's like, but try this, that. You could bypass and make it one channel. Explained all this shit to me, and I'm sitting there and man, it's murderous sounding.
Yeah.
Murderous.
I gotta check it out. I didn't even hear about it. I didn't even know about that one.
Yeah, it's like this big mint green, like elementary school bathroom green pedal. There's a rack version of it. If you got a hookup at Tech 21, look into it. I mean, nothing.
You know
beats
what?
The pedal.
You want to know something? I've never been sponsored by anybody. You believe that shit?
Really?
Nobody fucking hooks up the rock, but I don't give a fuck. I'm a Fender guy to the death. You know why I got hooked up to the Fender? Shout out to Beatty from Haybreed back in the day, because they got hooked up. A lot of people out there were always like, yo, come through me. I said, yo, Beatty, yo, you got a hookup? I got you. Boom. That's how I got my Fenders. Shout out to Beatty and Haybreed. But I got that Fender right when I got home from the first run I did with you. This band Against Me from Florida just got a Fender deal. And I hit up the bass player, Andrew, and I was just like, can you get me one? Yeah, shout out to all you motherfuckers.
He got me a P for like $400.
Yeah, shout out to all you fucking endorsed motherfuckers looking out for dudes like us, because that's how we get it.
And I want the Eddie Van Halen guitar, so that I gotta meet someone at Fender. That's my goal.
There's a Fender I want to buy. I've refused. I said I'll always buy a Fender. I don't no matter what, because I love them, but I don't need them. But there's a Fender they just dropped, a black and blue one. I don't know if you saw it, but not just because, obviously the color scheme is that, but the way it looks. Oh, for me, if any bass I want now, I want the old school Fender shit, the classics. That's the only thing I really get off on. There's one black and blue one they just put out. I don't even know if it was based over Batman or whatever fantasy. Let me tell you, that shit is fucking beautiful. I don't know how it plays, but beautiful. I actually was like, in my head, I was like I actually got $1,000 to spend on a fucking bass, which I got like 8 of them, and I got no shows to play. You know what I mean? I'm like, maybe not now, and I got two mouths to feed. No, but I'm like, fucking beautiful bass. But to me, I don't get, I don't give a fuck. The fact is, and also everybody out there listening, you don't need a Fender to fucking play in a band or to sound good either. Don't get it wrong, because I know what you mean. No, but you know what I mean.
I'm gonna let you be motivational.
Yeah, you know what I mean. It's not always about the brand. The first thing is everybody got to worry about. Try writing a dope track. Write songs, get tight, and then worried about what brand names you have behind you on your equipment. Because some people worry a lot about the aesthetics right away in a band, and I get it. True. I get it. In a band, you want to look, but don't worry. More important than anything, they're gonna hear you before they see you. So worry about your tracks.
I learned it's all in the wrist, man. That's from watching dudes. Who do I mention there? Like Daryl Jennifer, Lemmy, the wrist.
Yeah,
it's the wrist.
Yeah, for sure. James Hetfield. You know what I mean? Steve Harris. You know what I mean? That motherfucker. I would love to see those two go at it. Two different instruments, but that's the pick motherfuckers. The galloping, that whole right hand. And for New York hardcore, that's fucking AJ, who I've been trying to get on the fucking show, everybody.
Why won't he do it?
He's just a down low guy, but I want to get I want an AJ on the show, because Leeway is one of my biggest influences on my playing. They're one of the bands that brought style to hardcore music, and they weren't some punk rock, just punk rock mixed. They were more the metallic side of the
Leeway
hardcore.
Was one of my first shows. It was Leeway, Lunatics, Iceman. Yeah. And I remember being confused by Eddie because he had like a Yankees jersey. Yeah. He didn't look like they sounded.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow.
And they were fucking dope. And let me just say this about Leeway. We got to play with them. They did one of their reunions. I want to say it was in the early 2000s. Riggs, I want to say might have still been in the band, but it was one of their later reunions with the original lineup, and it was in Europe. And again, I got goose pimples right now. They sounded like the fucking album.
Like Kill Your Idols. It might have been the same tour. Kill Your Idols played the Lint Fabrique. Do you remember that place in Belgium?
What year was that about? What year you talking?
It had to be
early, late 90s?
Early to mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I was only filling in for Kill Your Idols.
Okay.
And we played with them the night of the World Cup.
Okay.
At the Lint Fabrique. And it was Michael Gibbons.
Yeah. That had to be the run.
Eddie Cohen, I think, on bass, right?
Yeah.
And it was great. It was great seeing that there. It was just a whole different vibe.
Yeah, yeah. And I love that. And that's like, the guitar guys, those dudes are fucking nasty, but it was great to see them and like, the great players. And then, again, and then the good thing about what I love about those players or whatever, that it brought everybody, a lot of people's games up, having guys like that in the scene. Because we wouldn't copy of a Metallica guy, even if we love Metallica, because, when you're a hardcore kid, you can't acknowledge your metal past at first. God forbid. Back then, God forbid you did that, even though everybody came in through metal. What I mean?
And if you saved all those shirts, think of how much money you could sell for right now.
And right now, fucking all these new hardcore bands are rocking all those throwback metal shirts that everybody back in the day, in our day, got rid of because it wasn't cool. Now, that's the one thing. We just came up with something these new fucking kids got right. They learn to appreciate the throwback era of fucking bands and shit. Even if they may do it for style, we love those bands. If it's a fucking Man of War shirt or some shit like that, you know what I mean? Even though I wasn't a Man of War guy, but yeah.
But bands like Crumbsuckers, Leeway, even Killing Time.
Hell yeah.
Just raising the bar of musicianship, where it's like, okay, it's more metallic, and it's not just listening to like no diss, but like it's not like listening to Life's Blood.
Exactly.
It's like now there's the playing field just got opened up a bit.
Yeah, and Crumbsuckers had motherfuckers that could play. Like, the minute you had two guitars, even Cro-Mags later with the two guitars going solo sections and fucking, you're like, damn, wow, this is real shit. Like, that's why I was like, with my old band, I was like, we got to step our game up. Me and Beto used to be like, we got to do like these metal motherfuckers. Because they come out and they sound like no joke. Yeah. And that's why we were like, we need to sound big. We need to throw solos. We can't be afraid to show off in that way. Like, go off, make a big song, make an intro, make a solo, like do all the candy shit. Like, we were like, and that was because the metal guys.
I think your the most metal Madball record is Infiltrate.
Yeah.
I think, Legacy was getting there, and then Infiltrate is
sure
metallic.
Yes.
I love metal Madball, man. I love it. Because it's not just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. The groove is still always there. That record for me, and granted, Legacy and Infiltrate was me spending time with you guys filling in, but those two records were like really are, I think, my two favorite, side by side. But again, then it opens, I can have an hour conversation about why every record's my favorite, and then interrupt myself.
And the Infiltrate it's for me, it's one of my favorite albums because of that reason. Like, I'm a metal motherfucker too. People, again, I'm a hardcore kid, but I love that metal shit. I'm the one who brought that metal shit to Madball. I was like, how could we take that old school rawness and I want to throw that metal groove shit, because I was into that groove shit. I said that real tight playing, but that that scooped in fucking groove shit. So it's
not like it's not like you're distancing yourself from your sound with that album either. It's like a good progression.
You know what I think why you also appreciate that record is also the style of metal that we use. We use a thrash style that I think we all familiar with. You know what I mean? Yep. Like, it is not so much maybe a black metal style or a metalcore style or even a newer style of thrash. It's like that 101 traditional thrash mixed in with some hardcore. So you could get a little bit of what a Slayer might feel, a little Metallica-ish riff, a little Exodus-ish kind of vibe, still with that leeway. And then live, since you guys are like a fucking machine, it's scary live, like a weird word to use. Yeah, try. Again, I give all that to the metal motherfuckers for making us hardcore motherfuckers work. You know what I mean? Like we gotta and fucking what's the difference? Let me ask you this, because you got to tour as a hardcore band and you got to tour now in another whole different genre, still heavy music in the metal genre, and even more. It's more than just a metal. It's like you're in a niche of metal because you're not just doing a festival with fucking Def Leppard and fucking whoever, you know. What do you think would be the difference? Obviously, crowd-wise, it's different style. What do you think on the fans themselves, without trying to diss anybody? What do you think are the difference between those metal kids and let's say the hardcore kids as fans?
Open-mindedness.
On which part?
Open-mindedness. And I mean, I love the most that people don't step on your pedals and step on your cables and shit. I don't miss people pushing you out of the way by your strings, by what's making the sound that you're going to stage dive to. Someone pushes you by your strings to move so they could jump off the stage, and it knocks over like 55 things that you own at the same time.
And who you said was the open mind? Who was the open-minded people? You're saying the metal guy?
Yes. Maybe just. Europe in general has always been more open-minded. Like you still see like a 45 at the time when I'm younger, you know, like now I'm 43, but when I was younger, I would still see an older guy with like a Morbid Angel hat and a Sick of It All shirt that looked like it got ran over by like a steamroller and like before they even have merch put out. Like, you know, you just see one of these dudes who's drinking a beer and he's still psyched to be at a show. When over here, sometimes people get jaded like that and they don't care. And, you know, and it doesn't have to be at Wacken. It could be the Linfabrique. You get these people that don't grow out of things and always sort of stay true to what they are and sincerely love music. And, you know, it's not that it's fake over here, but I feel like the trends come and go.
Shelf life is short here in America for sure. And
I always love that about Europe, how people are just more open-minded to things.
And let me ask you this, because you're in that world. So I don't know. I know you, like you said, you know, I know you heard and you saw that shows are back because you were at a little show in New York City not too long ago.
One.
You were at the Super Spreader event, I heard.
Oh, yeah.
But it's the Super Spreader.
Now you got to see my neighborhood now is the Super Spreader. People out the entire neighborhood right now is a super spreader.
Right now, you go out my house, there's people jerking off on the street. They don't know how to act out here in Florida, but we've been open all the time. But listen, let me ask you this: what's the word in you know, now where everything is catching up, things are opening up. What's the word in the metal front as far as how's it looking for shows? I mean, we're all on the same page, but are there shows in your world
right now,
or what's what?
It seems like anything getting booked right now is semi-local, maybe last minute, but it seems like if it's not an inconvenience, book a show. You know, with the exception of you guys flying up here, you know, like Sheer Terror played Arrogant Swine, stuff like that, where it's like local and it's safe to book something. I'm noticing like some festivals are happening. There's Psycho Las Vegas that
I've seen
appears, and that's in August, and they're banking on
that'll happen.
European headliner.
I don't know about the international in and outs, but I think all these other these festivals, it's official now. You go out now everywhere, you know, people forgot already. You know what I mean? I don't want to say that, but it's open. Shit's opening up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think I heard that Europe was planning on the EU was going to open borders to Americans possibly this summer with no date. So I'm thinking if that's the case, America will do the same. And if visas are lined up, like Psycho Las Vegas has some backing, you know, it's at the MGM. I believe that has a lot to do with it. If the visas are filled out properly, I mean, you could get an MMA fighter here from China. You could maybe get some guys here from Europe for this thing to Las Vegas.
With the right people, money behind you, it'll happen.
And without certain bands, the festival won't happen. You know, they have some like big hitters that are from Europe. So I'm curious to see how that happens. It's very ambitious. But it seems like the festival idea is going to be the way to go, unless it's like I said, unless it's local, like local yokel, not to diss, but it's. The festival is the move. We don't have anything until next year. And the plan is, again, make a record this summer and have it out by like beginning of the year into spring, and already have stuff like, discussions about like a couple festivals. If this tour like submitted for a tour in the fall of 2022 now.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not totally in a rush in the sense that I'd rather it be at 100% before we operate, because again, we're supporting on an album. We're going to be supporting on a bigger tour. So I'm more dependent on the bigger picture. Like you guys could come and headline the park and fucking smash it.
No, I know what you mean.
Yeah. For us, I think personally, it's better to wait until things are at 100.
Yeah.
Or else it just would be half-assed.
No, I hear you.
For us.
Yeah, and especially if you're going to come out with another record and you want the record and the setup and all that. So the plan is new record, setting up for tours, but nothing is set up for till next year. So
nothing until 2022.
Is anybody going to hear you planning to drop anything this year? A song, an old song, or something? You guys got to drop something.
I'm hoping to press starts in like the last quarter of the year. You know, like we have there's a couple of things sitting around, like older stuff, some covers that we're going to do for this record cycle, weird choices, totally weird choices, but again, choices that make sense. So I'm hoping just to see, and again, we haven't even really dealt with the record label that we signed with yet. Like I know one dude that the guy that runs it in America is the one that signed us to Relapse. He left and moved over to Season of Mist, Gordon Conrad. I've discussed with him, but we still haven't even really dove into that madness yet, you know?
Yeah.
So, and I got a side thing actually that I started writing some slightly more death metal, like a little more ignorant riff wise. And that I know these guys look at me and stop with the like, the leeway Metallica chugging. And ignorant heavy stuff. Like I always think like, what would Madball do? I hit like a standpoint and I'm like, just throw a beat down in there and do something ignorant in the most respectful way possible. So I started writing some during the beginning of this whole thing. I wrote a bunch of like one-off songs and I would send them to people. So, people were like, I wish we could do something together. I get a garage band, bang, 45 minutes later, I'm like, sing.
Yeah.
nobody took the bait.
Yeah, you were too on point. You were too on point for motherfuckers.
Yep, calling bluffs. And Rafe was joking around, and he's like, "We could put out your like, your best, your worst of, put out a comp of all my reject shit that nobody ever fucking cares about." But like, Shane was just like, "I want to do a black metal band. Nobody wants," and I wrote Shane a song like a year and a half ago. Stress said he was going to record vocals recently, I think.
Yeah,
I hope, and
that'll be amazing.
That's what I'm waiting because Shane will rock.
Oh yeah, I want
put that makeup back on.
I want to manage him.
Play bass in the Yankees corpse paint.
I'm in. The black white face with the New York symbol on the face. Oh, you heard it here first, everybody. I'm in.
And then you take the black metal king of Queens title.
Listen,
there you go.
Everybody, copyright this episode, motherfuckers. Put it in an envelope and mail it to yourself. Remember that shit back in the day? To copyright your demo? Motherfuckers don't know what we had to do back in the day.
And I never had to even reopen that envelope.
Don't open it because then it's not official no more.
But I started writing a bunch of stuff for people, thinking like, okay, if you respond with vocals on a song, then I'll move forward.
Yeah.
Never happened. Until I sent my friend Lucas. He sings in a band called Funeral Leech from New York. They're like doomy death metal stuff. I sent him a track. A day later, sent me back vocals, and I was like, all right. I was like, well, let's break it up in 50-50 to vocals. I'll write all the stuff and we'll figure it out. And this label from Canada, Profound Lore, was in touch, and that guy Chris said he'd be happy to put it out. So I'm like a song away from finishing writing that record.
You
just have to have someone play drum. Yeah, it's called Dispel.
All right. There you go. Look out, some new music. And when's that gonna come out? This year?
Realistically, probably next year too.
Next year.
Yeah.
But you have to put out something black or something this year. You can't let that. It's still, we're just in the first quarter of the year. You can't let all that too much. You got to keep in the,
or
chumming,
else,
I call it chumming the waters. Keep throwing some fish guts out there for the sharks. You know what I mean?
Dangle the carrot a little bit.
Yeah, dangle your dingleberries right over there.
So that sort of materialized out of nowhere. A guy heard a demo I just sort of threw together and was just like, I'll put this out. So that made me think like, okay, now it can't just be me writing a quick song and sending it to this guy. Yeah. Now I gotta make it perfect. And then I start getting into that mode where I'm like a psychopath about it. But yeah, so I got that cooking, which will be cool. I don't think it'll play live. I think it's just one of these. I think it should be a recording project.
Yeah,
but who knows?
You never know.
Like ideally, I always say that. Like, just record, and then next thing you're on a plane to go play a festival.
I said that too with Matt. But yeah, I'll fill in for a show or two. And 27 years later,
27 years. Jesus
Christ! I put more. I should be a brain surgeon. If I would have put all this time in medical school, I would have been a millionaire. Fixing people's brains. Now I'm fucking people's brains up. But look, I'm glad I got you on. I've been wanting to get you for a minute, but I said, you know what? Let me catch this weekend for some reason. I said, let me see if I could catch you now. So it was kind of you were on the books, but I'm glad I got you at the last minute. So
yeah, me too, man. It worked out perfect on my end too.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm glad. And again, everybody, where they could find you and follow you, what's the band's Instagram and all that shit?
Black Anvil, one word.
Black Anvil on you got an Instagram, and what about a Facebook or just the Instagram?
Instagram and Facebook. It's all the same, and it's all just Black Anvil.
Listen, go download that shit. Go support the movement. Go sacrifice chickens in the name of them and all that good shit.
In the name of heavy metal, please.
In the name of heavy metal. But yo, I love you, Paul. You know what's up.
I love you too.
We talk soon. This comes out this Thursday. Everybody, Smokin Word, Black Anvil. You know what time it is. We out.
All right, man.